Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I was looking through the IMDb most popular list for new films to watch and discovered Cleaner. I know what you're thinking, and no, it's not a Jason Statham film. It's a Statham light film. Less action, more drama, and the same silly writing. Get ready for a mediocre ride. Cleaner is a British action film that came out in February and recently hit streaming services. The plot revolves around terrorists taking a group of high-powered people hostage and threatening to blow them up if they don't confess to their environmental crimes. Joanna, a window cleaner working late, sees the terrorist group taking over and helps the police take them on. The screenplay was written by Simon Utley, Paul Andrew Williams, and Matthew Orton. Martin Campbell directed the film, which stars Daisy Ridley as Joanna, Matthew Tuck as her brother Michael, and Clive Owen as the leader of the terrorists. Alright, let's start by talking about the film's positives. The story is actually pretty fun, despite how dumb it can be at times. They start by setting up the characters and the situation. It takes a little while, and there's a few weird moments, but they do a good enough job building things up that you'll probably want to stick around to see what happens. They build up a decent protagonist in Joanna without making her too overpowered. She's good at climbing, and she's a decent fighter. Her brother is also good with computers. When it comes to their relationship, we get a few touching moments between them and some decent synergy. As for the villains, most of them are basic henchmen with a few outliers. The outliers get some key lines, but mostly sit pretty. When it comes to the leader, there's a bit of a twist. He takes a while to show up for real, and he's a lot more violent than everyone else. He makes everything into a game and turns the drama up to 11. His logic is a bit mental, but he does a good job of drawing the audience's ire. The bait and switch they tried to pull with the famous face was a bit cheesy though. With the first and second act building up the story, the third act is allowed to be the blowout finale. There's a bunch of action scenes thrown at you rapidly, there's only a little bit of dramatic posturing, and then the film ends on a nice but slightly delusional note. As far as finales go, it was well written for what the film was trying to be. The cast does okay with the material as well. As Joanna, Daisy Ridley does a good job of playing her normal everyday interactions. She shows off some chemistry with Matthew Tuck and plays off of him well during his freakouts. When it comes time for her to be an action star, she does a decent job. She isn't going to win any awards or start a franchise, but her performance was entertaining. Ridley also gets to do a few bigger emotional moments and provides a suitable display. Like the action, it's not her strongest aspect, but she'd keep up with most of the action stars of today. Matthew Tuck is the heart of the film. He plays Joanna's autistic brother and does it fabulously. He's good at the emotional bits, he has some great comedic timing, and he did a good job of playing the role in a down-to-earth way to avoid making a mockery of autism. Clive Owens is only in the film for a short period of time, but plays a calm and serious eco-terrorist. They kind of use him as a bait and switch, but the real villain is actually quite menacing, so it felt okay. The real villain, who I won't reveal, does a great job of acting psychotic. He's always on the edge of blowing himself and everyone else up, but toes the line in a sadistic way, like he's trying to get one last rise out of everyone. Before his reveal, he also did a good job of disguising himself. He just seems like a fun and casual character that doesn't raise any alarm bells. When it comes time for him to switch, he doesn't flip his personality completely either. He still shows elements of the nice guy from before, but twists them into a nastier version, which I thought was a nice touch. Visually, the film isn't much to write home about. You've got an office building, a fancy party with some dress wear, and a bunch of terrorists in black basic costumes parading around with guns. The first act is like a workplace drama. It's just Ridley going to her job as a window cleaner and dealing with a few personal issues at the same time. Then the terrorists show up and start their operation. They get the hostages rounded up and even manage to subdue most of the building's inhabitants. Things go south quickly when infighting causes the first death. Joanna sees all of it from her perch outside and sends out a distress signal. In the second act, there's a little bit of negotiating between the cops and the terrorists, and a lot of the terrorists enacting their plans. They force confessions out of the hostages, humiliate them a bit, and try and find Joanna, who's causing problems. Eventually, when she starts fighting back, we get a few fistfights, some more gunplay, and then a big showdown between her and the villain. It's all fairly basic for an action film, but they execute it well enough that it's entertaining. Sound-wise, they use a lot of basic instrumentals to try and add some atmosphere and support the emotional journey. The tracks are quite simple and not that effective, but they do occasionally hit the right note. Now for the negatives. The production isn't that great, for either the visuals or sound. With the visuals, the location they use and the costume work aren't much when compared to other films of this genre. There's no big set pieces, they don't have any cool special effects, and even the injuries are mostly superficial and implied. For the sound, the problem comes from the quality of the songs. They're using elevator music to try and pull out extreme emotions, but all they manage to get is a bit of indifference. The songs end up being white noise that doesn't really register. When it does work, it almost feels more like an accident than an actual intended effect. The story is also full of stupid writing. Moments where you can't help but shake your head because there's a glaringly obvious flaw with the villain's plan, or a henchman just lets the hero win for no reason. They're not bad enough to ruin the film, but it is bad enough to place the story firmly into the cheesy category. Personally, I thought the film was entertaining enough that I never felt bored, but I also wasn't that excited by it either. It basically feels like a long episode of an average cop show with a bit of superhero stranger syndrome thrown in. If you're looking for a lazy way to spend an afternoon, this is okay, but you won't remember it in a day or two. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 5 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!